Waiter, wait! The female CEO called out in the middle of the upscale restaurant, causing every diner to turn their heads. The server who had just helped her pick up her dropped purse froze in place. Her eyes trembled, then she suddenly spoke the shocking words. "I don't have a husband. Can I have a date with you?" The sound of dropping silverware echoed. The entire dining room fell silent. In front of everyone, the person she addressed wasn't a distinguished guest or billionaire, but just a single dad janitor in a worn service uniform. He stood quietly, his young daughter running to hug his leg. In that moment, the bustling space seemed to stop breathing. A painful secret had just spilled out where few would expect it. 1 year earlier, during a charity gala night, the hotel caught fire. Thick black smoke filled the corridors. Many people panicked and fled. Victoria, already a famous CEO at that time, was trapped in the hallway, unable to breathe, thinking she wouldn't escape. Daniel, working the night custodial shift, heard the alarm, rushed in, used his wet shirt to cover his face, and pulled her out through the smoke. He handed her to medical personnel, then disappeared, because he had to run home to pick up his daughter Emily. From that moment, Victoria was haunted by those calm eyes, the lean but strong figure who had saved her life. She searched for an entire year, but no one knew the identity of that man. Daniel continued living quietly, working at Levine restaurant, raising his daughter on meager wages, avoiding attention. Emily often drew pictures of her hero, Daddy holding a mop like a sword, standing guard against smoke and fire. Victoria had built her empire through calculated decisions and strategic partnerships, surrounding herself with people who wanted something from her wealth or influence. But the memory of that night remained vivid. Strong hands pulling her from certain death, asking for nothing in return, disappearing into the chaos to care for his own family. She'd hired private investigators, checked employment records, even attended charity events hoping to encounter him again. But Daniel had returned to his invisible existence, working night shifts when most people slept, caring for Emily during the day. Lavinia Restaurant was an upscale establishment where Victoria occasionally dined with business associates, never suspecting that her rescuer worked in its kitchen and dining room. Daniel had chosen service work deliberately, jobs that kept him in the background, unnoticed by the wealthy clientele he served. His priority was providing stability for Emily while remaining present for every important moment in her childhood. The fire had been traumatic for both of them, but in different ways. Victoria remembered being saved, while Daniel remembered almost being too late, almost failing to help someone who needed him. Emily's drawings always featured her father as a protector, someone who stood between danger and innocent people. Though she didn't fully understand the story behind her artistic inspiration, Daniel's approach to work reflected the same protective instincts that had driven him into a burning building. He noticed when customers seemed uncomfortable, when co-workers struggled with difficult tasks, when children at nearby tables needed assistance their parents hadn't noticed. His supervisors valued his reliability and discretion, qualities that made him nearly invisible to diners while ensuring their experience was seamless. Victoria's search for her rescuer had become an obsession that interfered with her focus on business matters, though she told herself it was simply gratitude that needed expression. The truth was more complex. In a world where every relationship was transactional, someone had risked their life for her without expecting anything in return, and that selflessness had awakened feelings she'd forgotten existed. Her wealth and success had created barriers between her and genuine human connection, with most people either intimidated by her achievements or interested only in what she could provide them. Daniel represented something different, someone who'd seen her at her most vulnerable and had simply helped. No questions asked, no rewards expected. Emily slipped a scribbled piece of paper into her father's hand. "If I was a VIP customer, I would tip Daddy a whole purple flower garden." Daniel folded it carefully, smiling sadly at his daughter's innocent generosity. One rainy evening, Victoria entered the upscale restaurant, unexpectedly encountering Daniel in his staff uniform. She froze, recognizing the eyes she'd seen on that fire-filled night. Daniel bowed his head, pretending not to know her, simply doing his job. Emily ran out, accidentally mentioning to other customers, "My daddy once saved someone from a fire." Victoria heard this, her heart pounding, confirming he was indeed the man who had saved her life. She tried to start conversations, asking his name, his work schedule, but Daniel avoided her, not wanting attention. Victoria observed how he took blame for coworkers' mistakes, replaced cracked glasses, straightened crooked tablecloths, all done quietly. In those gestures, she felt a safety she'd never experienced with the powerful men around her. Daniel spoke briefly. "I don't want my daughter seeing her father in the newspapers." Victoria nodded, understanding he chose silence to protect Emily. The restaurant became a stage where two worlds intersected but couldn't openly acknowledge each other. Victoria's business dinners took on new meaning when she knew Daniel was working, though he maintained professional distance. She began recognizing patterns in his behavior that revealed his character. How he stayed late to help newer employees learn procedures, how he immediately cleaned spills before customers noticed, how he anticipated needs before they were expressed. These observations reminded her of the night he'd saved her life, acting without hesitation when others might have calculated risks or sought permission. Daniel's protective instincts extended beyond his daughter to everyone around him, a quality that had drawn Victoria to him initially, but now made her understand why he avoided her attention. She represented exactly the kind of exposure that could disrupt the quiet life he'd built for Emily, bringing media scrutiny and social complications he couldn't afford. Victoria's usual dining companions were business associates, competitors, or potential partners who treated meals as networking opportunities rather than genuine social interactions. But watching Daniel work, she remembered what authentic service looked like, anticipating needs, solving problems quietly, making others comfortable without seeking recognition. Her attraction wasn't just gratitude for the rescue, it was recognition of character traits that were rare in her professional circles. Genuine kindness, selfless service, and the courage to act when action was needed. Daniel's avoidance of her wasn't personal rejection, it was protective strategy, shielding both his daughter and himself from complications that could arise from associating with someone of Victoria's prominence. Emily's innocent comments about her father's heroism created moments of connection that Daniel couldn't completely prevent, revealing glimpses of the man behind the professional mask. Victoria began timing her restaurant visits to coincide with Daniel's shifts, though she told herself these were coincidental business dinners that happened to occur at convenient times. She noticed how other staff members respected him, seeking his advice on difficult customers, asking him to handle sensitive situations that required diplomacy and discretion. These interactions revealed leadership qualities that were unrecognized by management, but clearly valued by his peers, who trusted his judgment and relied on his experience. Victoria's world was filled with people who led through authority and intimidation, but Daniel's influence came from competence and genuine care for others' well-being. The contrast challenged her assumptions about power and leadership, making her question whether her own success had come at the cost of human connections that might have been more valuable. Daniel's presence in the restaurant created a sanctuary where she felt safe from the competitive pressures that defined most of her social interactions. But that safety came with the knowledge that it was temporary and conditional, dependent on his willingness to remain invisible and her ability to respect the boundaries he'd established. The tension between her desire for connection and his need for privacy created an impossible situation that couldn't be resolved through traditional approaches. Victoria was accustomed to getting what she wanted through negotiation, purchase, or strategic maneuvering, but Daniel couldn't be acquired or persuaded through conventional means. His resistance wasn't playing hard to get. It was genuine protection of something more valuable than any business deal: his daughter's security and his own peace of mind. The fire that had brought them together had also created the circumstances that kept them apart, with Victoria's gratitude becoming a burden that Daniel couldn't safely accept. Before leaving the restaurant, Emily whispered in Victoria's ear, "If you're scared, Daddy will stand in front of you." Victoria smiled through tears, trusting someone completely for the first time in years. During an important dinner meeting, Ethan appeared, Victoria's business rival, wealthy and domineering. Ethan mocked her in front of the crowd. Successful female CEO, but still alone at this hour? He mentioned the fire, laughing coldly. Lucky some janitor pulled you out otherwise. Victoria remained calm, but her eyes flashed with anger. Daniel stood nearby, silently observing, shifting position to protect her. Ethan pressed harder. If you don't sign the contract, I'll release the story. Let's see who still considers you an icon." The atmosphere grew heavy. Diners whispered among themselves. Victoria suddenly stood up, turned toward Daniel, her voice strong and clear. "I don't have a husband. Can I have a date with you?" The entire restaurant hall fell silent. People couldn't believe their ears. Ethan was stunned, trying to laugh it off, but was clearly humiliated in front of everyone. Daniel was confused, but Emily ran out to hug his leg, looking at Victoria with a smile. Victoria spoke loudly enough for him to hear. "I choose the person who saved me once and is still saving me every day." Ethan left angrily, completely losing face. Daniel made no promises, just said gently, "We can have dinner on time." The restaurant erupted in whispers and camera phones as diners tried to process what they'd witnessed. Victoria Brooks, the ice queen of the business world, had just publicly asked out a service worker. Ethan's humiliation was complete and public, his attempt to leverage her past trauma backfiring spectacularly when she turned vulnerability into strength. The other diners included journalists, business leaders, and social media influencers who would ensure this moment spread far beyond the restaurant walls. Victoria's declaration wasn't just romantic gesture. It was strategic counterattack against someone trying to weaponize her rescue story for business advantage. By claiming her narrative publicly, she'd removed Ethan's power to use it against her while simultaneously revealing her values to everyone present. Daniel's calm response showed he understood the complexity of the situation, offering connection while maintaining the boundaries that protected his daughter. Emily's immediate acceptance of Victoria revealed the child's intuitive understanding of her father's feelings, despite his attempts to maintain professional distance. The other restaurant staff watched in amazement as their colleague became the center of attention from the city's most powerful business leader. Victoria's choice to make her feelings public rather than continue hiding them transformed the entire dynamic between them, removing the secrecy that had constrained their interactions. Ethan's retreat marked the end of his attempt to control Victoria through threats and intimidation, his strategy defeated by her willingness to embrace rather than hide her authentic feelings. The business dinner that was supposed to focus on corporate negotiations had become a declaration of personal values and priorities that would reshape Victoria's public image. Media coverage would focus not on the business deal that didn't happen, but on the human story of connection across social and economic boundaries. Daniel's agreement to dinner represented a significant shift in his protective strategy, accepting increased visibility in exchange for the possibility of genuine relationship. The restaurant management faced the challenge of handling the sudden media attention while protecting their employees' privacy and maintaining normal operations. Victoria's boldness in making such a public declaration demonstrated confidence that came from finally knowing what she truly wanted, regardless of social expectations or business considerations. The dinner invitation, simple as it was, represented mutual acknowledgement that their connection was worth the risks it would bring to both their lives. Other diners began sharing their own stories of unexpected connections and relationships that crossed traditional boundaries, inspired by witnessing such authentic human courage. The moment became legendary in business circles, not as scandal, but as example of leadership that prioritized human values over strategic positioning. Emily's presence during the exchange ensured that any future relationship would need to include her as full participant, not afterthought to adult romance. Victoria's public statement had permanently altered the power dynamics in her business relationships, showing competitors that she couldn't be manipulated through personal attacks. Daniel's acceptance, conditional though it was, indicated his willingness to trust Victoria's judgment about managing the public attention that would inevitably follow. The on-time condition he specified reflected his continued priority on maintaining stability and routine for Emily, even as their lives became more complicated. Restaurant employees who'd watched Daniel work quietly for months suddenly saw him as someone whose character had attracted the attention of the city's most successful business leader. The story would be retold countless times, usually focusing on the dramatic public proposal, but missing the deeper themes of authentic character recognition and mutual protection. Victoria's choice to pursue someone based on his actions during crisis, rather than his social status or wealth, challenged conventional assumptions about what successful people actually valued. The evening ended with Daniel returning to his duties, while Victoria left, knowing that she'd irrevocably changed both their lives through her public declaration. The phrase, "still saving me every day," became the most quoted part of her statement, revealing that heroism wasn't a single dramatic act, but consistent daily choices to protect and care for others. Several days later, Victoria found her way to Daniel and Emily's small apartment. The cramped apartment had a small balcony with dry, barren planters that had once been the dream of his late wife who wanted to grow lavender. Emily proudly announced, "I want to plant these again for Mommy." Victoria joined the father and daughter in mixing soil, planting new seeds, hanging string lights. For the first time, the CEO's hands got dirty with mud, but she laughed with genuine comfort. All three shared a simple dinner: sandwiches, soup, no need for expensive restaurants. Victoria told stories of her wealthy but lonely childhood, large dining tables with always empty chairs. Daniel shared stories of losing his wife, learning to cook simply but on time. Both found harmony in ordinary moments. Emily drew a new picture, no longer showing a lonely woman, but three people sharing a garden. Victoria's apartment had been featured in architectural magazines, showcasing minimalist design and expensive artwork, but it had never felt like home the way Daniel's cramped space did within minutes. The lavender seeds represented more than gardening project. They were connection to Daniel's deceased wife and Emily's desire to honor her mother's memory while creating something new. Victoria's willingness to get her hands dirty, literally and figuratively, showed Daniel that she understood the value of authentic work rather than just directing others to do it. The simple meal contrasted sharply with the elaborate business dinners that comprised most of Victoria's social eating, but it satisfied her in ways that expensive cuisine never had. Emily's natural acceptance of Victoria's presence indicated the child's readiness for expanded family structure, having intuitive understanding that her father needed companionship. Daniel's stories about learning to cook revealed his commitment to providing Emily with stability and normalcy, despite the challenges of single parenthood and limited resources. Victoria's childhood stories explained her emotional distance and need for control, having learned early that wealth couldn't purchase genuine affection or family warmth. The apartment's modest furnishings spoke of careful budget management and priorities focused on Emily's needs, rather than impressive possessions or social status. Victoria began understanding how Daniel's protective instincts extended to creating a safe, predictable environment where Emily could thrive despite having lost her mother. The string lights they hung together transformed the small space into something magical, showing how thoughtful touches could create beauty without significant expense. Emily's artwork throughout the apartment revealed her emotional processing of family changes and her hopes for future that included all the people she loved. Daniel's on-time philosophy extended beyond meal preparation to every aspect of his relationship with Emily, prioritizing reliability and presence over grand gestures. Victoria's laughter at getting muddy hands showed her reconnection with simple pleasures that had been absent from her structured, image-conscious lifestyle. The evening represented mutual vulnerability, with both adults sharing personal histories that explained their current circumstances and emotional needs. Emily's new drawing captured the possibility of blended family structure, where everyone contributed to shared happiness and mutual support. Victoria's decision to stay for simple dinner, rather than suggesting expensive restaurant, showed respect for Daniel's values and Emily's comfort zone. The conversation flowed naturally despite their different backgrounds, revealing shared values about family importance and authentic human connection. Daniel's apartment became sanctuary where Victoria could explore aspects of herself that had been suppressed by corporate expectations and social pressures. Emily's excitement about the gardening project created shared activity that would require ongoing collaboration and care, cementing relationships through meaningful work. Victoria's stories about empty chairs at large tables resonated with Daniel's understanding of loneliness and loss, creating an emotional bridge between their experiences. The evening ended with all three people feeling more complete than they had separately, suggesting possibility of genuine family formation based on mutual affection rather than circumstance. Daniel's acceptance of Victoria's presence in their private space represented significant trust, given his previous determination to maintain separation between work and personal life. Victoria's comfort in modest surroundings showed her ability to find happiness in simplicity, challenging assumptions about what successful people actually needed for fulfillment. Emily's role as bridge between the adults highlighted children's natural ability to recognize and encourage authentic connections between people they love. The apartment visit marked transition from public restaurant encounters to private family interactions, deepening relationships through shared domestic activities. The image of three people working together in soil, planting seeds that would grow into something beautiful, became metaphor for the careful cultivation required to build lasting relationships. One morning, the dry planters had sprouted small purple-green shoots. Emily shouted, "They're alive!" Victoria knelt down, gently touching the tender sprouts, her eyes welling with tears. She placed her cabin suitcase by the door, the suitcase that had traveled the world with her, whispering, "I don't want to run anymore." Looking at Daniel and Emily, she said, "If you two still need me, I want to stay." Daniel nodded, not flowery, just handed her another bamboo stake to support the growing plants. Emily hugged both of them, hanging her drawing, "This is my family," on the wall. Morning light filtered into the small kitchen, the lavender garden swaying in the breeze, the house filled with laughter. Message: family isn't where you're born, but where you choose to stay each day after going through fire and loss. The sprouting seeds represented more than successful gardening. They were evidence that careful attention and patience could bring life from seemingly barren circumstances. Victoria's decision to abandon her nomadic executive lifestyle showed commitment to building something lasting rather than constantly pursuing the next achievement or destination. The bamboo stake Daniel offered wasn't just gardening supply, it was invitation to participate in long-term care that would require daily attention and shared responsibility. Emily's "This is my family" drawing marked official recognition of their new family structure, created through choice rather than biology or legal arrangement. The morning light in the small kitchen represented new beginnings, illuminating ordinary space that had become extraordinary through shared love and commitment. The lavender garden swaying in the breeze showed how their patient cultivation was creating beauty that would continue growing and flourishing with continued care. Victoria's suitcase by the door symbolized her readiness to abandon the constant travel that had characterized her business success, but had prevented deeper human connections. Daniel's practical response to her declaration showed his character remained unchanged by her wealth or status, focused on concrete actions rather than romantic gestures. Emily's central role in their family formation highlighted how children often serve as catalysts for adult relationships when they recognize authentic affection and compatibility. The house filled with laughter indicated successful integration of different personalities and backgrounds into a harmonious family unit based on mutual respect and genuine affection. Victoria's transformation from isolated executive to integrated family member demonstrated how authentic relationships could reshape personal identity in positive ways. Daniel's steady presence provided stability that allowed both Victoria and Emily to explore new aspects of their personalities within a secure emotional environment. The message about family being chosen rather than given challenged conventional assumptions about relationship formation and the nature of lasting human bonds. Their story became an example of how crisis could reveal character qualities that form foundation for unexpected but genuine connections across social boundaries. The fire that had initially brought them together had tested both their characters, revealing values and priorities that made deeper relationship possible. Victoria's wealth and Daniel's working-class background became irrelevant compared to their shared commitment to protecting and nurturing Emily's well-being. The small apartment that had seemed cramped became perfect size for family that prioritized presence over possessions and authentic connection over social status. Emily's artistic documentation of their family evolution showed children's natural ability to recognize and celebrate genuine love when they encounter it. The lavender plants growing from seeds planted by deceased wife, tended by father and daughter, and nurtured by chosen family member, created continuity between past and future. Victoria's business empire continued functioning successfully, but no longer defined her identity or determined her daily priorities and long-term goals. Daniel's work remained important for practical reasons, but his primary focus shifted to family responsibilities that now included supporting Victoria's integration into their domestic life. Their relationship demonstrated how genuine partnerships could form between people from different backgrounds when they shared fundamental values about family, responsibility, and mutual care. The morning routine in their small kitchen became more valuable than any boardroom meeting or five-star restaurant, representing authentic life they built together. Years later, when people asked about their unusual beginning, Victoria would say simply, "He saved my life twice, once from fire and once from loneliness, and I finally learned the difference between success and happiness." If you believe in stories that touch the heart like this one, leave a comment below and don't forget to subscribe to Hidden Heart Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten, stories written by real people, not mass-produced AI.